بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين لله تبارك وتعالى. Inshallah ta'ala, we're going to continue in our reading of the summary of Riyadus as-Salihin, which was summarized by the great Sheikh Yusuf Nabhani and originally written by the great Imam Abu Zakaria Yahya ibn Sharaf al-Nawawi, rahimahullah ta'ala. And we wanted to remind you that this book is a very important book for anyone who is traveling the path to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And I believe that it is essential reading for anyone who wants to learn the Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Anyone who has an attachment, especially as a common person who's not a scholar, this book is a must-read. And when I say a must-read, it's a must-read that must be read multiple times while taking each section and putting it into practice. I wanted to start with something because I find it important. It is important for us who are the vast majority of us that attend these lessons. So when I'm speaking to the vast majority of us, which happen to be mostly Black African Americans, mostly. Some are not. Some are Black Jamaicans, Black this, Black that. Never the case, most of us are African Americans. And those who are not, they understand by now the plight and the importance of the reality of the African American or Black Muslim. Most of us who've been around, have listened to me, they understand. So I'm not talking to someone who doesn't understand. However, I don't want us to ever underestimate the importance of our cultural and societal and religious and educational and economic reality. For us, it is extremely important that we independently, from our own understanding, learn our deen. What do I mean by that? A lot of us are not aware of how this deen is conveyed. That's number one. Had we been aware, there would be no objection to us mentioning the important matters that relate to us as Black Muslims. If you study the world, everywhere in the world, every group of people, everywhere in the world, they mention the merits of their people, the importance of preserving their culture, preserving their lineage, preserving their family, preserving their scholarship, preserving everything that makes that people successful in this worldly life as well as in the hereafter. And no one ever says anything about it, which they shouldn't, because it's natural for a person to be concerned about his family, and it's part of the deen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to save ourselves and our families from the fire, the hellfire. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum. O you believe, save yourselves and your families. And the primary aspect of that is to teach them the matters of the religion. But it also entails taking care of their worldly matters as well, which is part of the religion. In Islam, there is no separation from religion and the world, meaning your religion is supposed to teach you how to navigate in the world. So for us, we need to preserve every aspect of our life and ensure that we as a people have that intact. Our children, our grandchildren will never have honor and dignity so long as they never see themselves as successful in every aspect of life. I'm going to repeat that. Our descendants, our children, our grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-great-grandchildren will never have honor and dignity so long as they don't see themselves as successful in every aspect of life. In order for them to feel that way, it is essential that we, who will be their predecessors, have that same honor and dignity ourselves. Is this point clear to everyone? Really? And how important it is? Don't say, yeah, I heard you, Imam, and that's nice. No, do we really understand the importance of what I'm talking about? Because we don't act like it. I'm going to say that. If we do, we don't act like it. But before we can act like it, maybe the fact is that we really don't understand how important it is. So I'm asking that question. Do we all really understand how important that is? That's not rhetorical. That requires an answer. Really. And I respond to something that was said to me. So really is a reason why I emphasize this. It was said to me, stop talking about black issues. Teach Islam. I said, really? Really? I said, so Islam doesn't involve black issues? I'm going to ask you a question. I'll ask you a few questions. And I want you to think about this. And I'm kind of extending from the Black Imams Roundtable a little bit. I wanted to get into the book, but I think this is important, even when we study books, that we understand this. I want to ask every one of you a question. Is there a disparity in terms of access to Islamic knowledge and scholarship between other groups of people, ethnicities, and African Americans? Yes or no? Is there a disparity in access to Islamic knowledge and scholarship between other ethnicities and African Americans specifically? I'll prove it if you doubt it. Tell you. So we agree. You said definitely there is a disparity, right? Okay. That's not an argument, is it? Is that a debate? That's not a debate. Tell you, it's not a debate. We agree. We surrender to that. Let me follow that. Since that is the case, is that justice or injustice? Is that justice or injustice? Question. That there is a disparity, it exists. Is that justice or injustice? We're talking religious knowledge, access to Islamic knowledge, access to scholarship. We need to go over it again because I think we're missing something. And let me pause. I want to share something with you before I go on to that. We got injustice, right? One of the biggest things that will kill us Islamically and socially is the desire not to repeat and to constantly remind ourselves. The one who is not reminded constantly will forget and will therefore stay in the same circumstances. The Jews have moved to where they moved to, right, wrong, or indifferent. We're talking about the movement, because they will not let the world forget what they went through. Whether you like what they're doing and you don't like it, doesn't matter. I'm talking about the actual movement. They have moved from their condition because they refuse to let the world forget what they went through. Understand that. And they will remind you over and over and over again. Even when they are in power, dominating almost every aspect of society, they still remind you of what they went through. Let me explain something to you. The average Israeli citizen, in terms of aid from the United States, receives roughly around $17,000 a year, if not more. Did you hear what I just said? The average Israeli citizen, in terms of aid, financial aid from the United States, receives roughly around $17,000 or more a year. If you take the total aid that's given to Israel and take their citizens, that's what it equates to, if not more. And that's on an old statistic. It's probably more. I don't follow their news numbers. That's how diligent they are in reminding the world of what they went through. Think about that. So for us to be still going through, even in Islamic knowledge, the same thing, we would be foolish to let the world think that we have forgotten our plight. That would be foolish. And we do it. And we stay in the same condition because we're not constantly reminding ourselves and others of this injustice. So if you don't remind, if you don't keep it in mind, it will remain. Hence, after having Islam, Sunni Islam, among us for over 100 years, we're still in the same condition. There is still a severe disparity in access to Islamic knowledge and scholarship. So I'm going to always repeat it. It is honestly a foundational principle in the work that we're doing. It is a foundational principle. A foundational principle. And I'm dead serious about it. Right? Until that disparity is removed by our hands and with the assistance of others, we're going to talk about it. So if one wants us to stop talking about these issues, then stand by us side by side to every door that leads to that disparity is knocked down. That's real. So long as you support an oppressive system that pushes injustice towards us, we need to speak. Period. No changing, no hesitating, no holding back. As long as injustice exists, we must speak. We cannot be silent, or it will continue as it has continued. So it's an injustice. Let me move back. I departed from my path just for that point, but let me go back. So we agree that we ain't talking about anything else, but access to Islamic knowledge and scholarship, there is a disparity. We agreed. That disparity is an injustice. Tell you. Is injustice a major sin in Islam? Yes or no? Is injustice a major sin in Islam? That's a question. Is injustice a major sin in Islam? This is a lesson in and of itself. So it's a major sin. If anyone sees a major sin, what is their obligation religiously? Sees, knows about a major sin being committed, what is their religious obligation? Far'ain, if they have the ability. At every level, what is their religious obligation? Someone knows a major sin is being committed. What's their obligation? We learned this lesson. We talked about it already. What is it? Change it with their hands. Right. If not, with their tongue. If not, with their hate it in their heart. Tayyib. That's what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, whoever among you sees a munkar. And the ulama, the scholars, they said, whoever knows about it, even if it is in China, let him change it with his hand. If he cannot, then with his tongue. If he cannot, then hate it in his heart, with his heart. And that is the weakest of faith when you have the ability to do something else. Now, so at the minimum level, you have to hate it in the heart. When can you just hate something in the heart when you have the ability to speak about it and change it with your tongue? Is it permissible religiously just to hate it in the heart when you have the ability to change it with your tongue? Is that permissible? We're talking Islamic knowledge here. Let's make sure we understand our religion. Is that permissible? So it's not permissible. If we're talking our religion, it's not permissible. You have the ability to change it with your tongue. Then that means, since you have that ability, you cannot just hate it in your heart. You cannot just hate it in your heart. You have the ability to say something. You must say something. That's a religious obligation. Now, with that, and yes, I'm leading you by questions. Whenever I'm wrong, stop me. Say you're wrong. You're mistaken. Right? So you see the disparity. You see it exists. Right? You have an obligation. It's a major sin. It's such a major sin that it's worse than slaughter, being killed. That's how bad injustice is. It has more effects. Rather be killed than be treated unjust. You have an obligation. With that being said, I want to ask, how many of you, especially those who have learned Islam, Sunni Islam, for years, in all the years, how many of you have seen respected, honored Black African American scholarship that's respected by everybody? Scholarship. I'm not talking about popular speaker on the scene, token Negro spokesman. I'm talking about Islamic scholarship, respected with chains of narration and respected for that in specific fields of Islamic sciences. How many of you seen it? Respected authorities in fields. Give me one. Not we make one because they're not existing and we just develop one. We talking about this is a respected, renowned, worldwide, African-American, Islamic scholar in this field, worldwide, even in America. Forget worldwide. Even in America, he's a respected authority in this field. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I hate to break your bubble. No, sir. And it has no bearing on the individual. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Right? Without bearing on the individual, no. So here's my point. Is that not a sign of disparity and injustice? It is. So that means we have a work to change this stuff. We have a job. That's important work. We have to change it. Even if we're not capable at the level of forbidding the wrong, removing injustice, we must speak up until it changes. And then it is not going to change until we ourselves change our whole outlook to the whole system. Do y'all follow me? Till we ourselves change our whole outlook to how we approach this way of Islam and how we understand it, listen, it will remain the same. We have to change that. We have to be like our great-great-grandfathers and grandmothers or ancestors who were in slavery, and they said, you know what? We're going to fight till one day our people are free. And the first step they took was to get off the plantation. The first step they took was to get off the plantation. They understood as long as we're on the plantation, we will never be free. Do y'all understand this point? As long as we're on the plantation, we will never be free. That's real. And some of us don't want to do the work to get off the plantation because we're afraid to die. Some of us don't want to do the work that is required to get off the plantation because we're afraid to die. To me, this is just an important lesson as is we memorizing the Quran and the Hadith. To me, this is my personal feeling. This lesson is just as important as if we're memorizing the Quran and the Hadith. Because the Quran and the Hadith comes to give you life. And if you're on the plantation, you don't have a life. That was the first thing that our ancestors did to help us on the road to freedom. And that's the first thing we must do to help our future generations to Islamic freedom, to scholarship, to access. We have to break the chains of slavery. Do you realize that people I know, and I'm going to speak this when I say I know, this is my life. It's all I do. I realize how much is intentionally hidden from us. I realize it. I realize that if we had access to this tradition of Islam and Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, things will look much different in our communities. Every time I look at my library, I feel a necessary anger. What is that necessary anger? I know how much is hidden from my people. And it makes me rightfully angry. And the most difficult part of it is that others have taught us not to learn from us and actively tell people, don't learn from your own. Let me repeat that. That's what I see. That's what I know. And then other people actively tell us not to learn from our own and disparage our own so that, and they don't give us access. They control us. Worse than that, what they don't give us to, they give to their own openly and freely, those deserving of it and those who don't care less about it. Let me repeat that. While they're hiding it from us, denying it from us, they freely give it to their own, those who deserve it and those who could care less about it. They give them free, open, total access. Did you hear what I just said? This is stuff I know. It's not something I'm guessing. It's not something that, Imam Amin is just racist. No, this is a problem. This is a serious problem that we have to overcome. But in order to overcome it, somebody got to make us aware that it's a problem. And we have to be consciously aware that this is a major problem. Good question. When did you become aware of this? I can't say specifics because it involves people whom I'm working on them, right? So I can't mention names. But I'll give you a hint when I became totally aware of this. I was in a session. Prior to me doing this, I would mix and I would be among the few African Americans in certain circles. It's been my life. Like in Islamic stuff, I wasn't Wahhabi. One thing the Wahhabis, they have is a lot of them because the Saudis took young black people out the inner city and brainwashed them in Saudi Arabia and sent them back. So there's a lot of black Wahhabis. And that's the default position in this country, through their books, through their propaganda, through their institution, through their funding masjids, through their funding. So the Wahhabiyya concentrated in the black community as a servant class. They've never elevated to leadership. They're a servant class among the Wahhabiyya. And the Saudis use them to spread their infamous doctrine. Y'all do understand that, right? Y'all do understand that, right? Because they got the same issue. They're just waking up to it. They just haven't wake up to the Wahhabi part. They woke up to we slave part. They got that part. So all those black graduates from the University of Medina, those who studied, they all waking up to these Saudis have treated us like slaves. They're waking up to that. They're aware of that. May Allah help them move to another level to realize you still got the slave master's education too. That's another story. But they're aware that they've been subjugated. They're aware of that. And they're slowly breaking away from that, right? So they got that part. And that's a good thing. Now, all they got to do is get rid of that false indoctrination that they received at their hands, and they're on their way, and it will be a big help for the African-American community that these people learned, and they have access, and inshallah, that's another dua, right? But as Sunnis, Ahl Sunnah, there wasn't a heavy concentration of blacks. Very few that studied the Sunni route, right? So therefore, all of us who studied the Sunni route were like by ourselves mixed with others. Like the only African-American, maybe 2 of us, 3 of us, right? And if you continued your studies, you were at one point you were by yourself or with, like I said, a companion or 2, right? That's just the way it was. So being in that, you know, you start to notice stuff. You start to notice that, number one, your people are being forgotten. That one aspect. Because you look in the crowd, it's everybody else but you. You on the stage, you in the class, you're leading. But when you look around, maybe it's a handful of y'all. If the crowd is 300, 400, at max, y'all 10. At max, you're 10. Something ain't right here. That's one. Then an incident happened one time. There was an African-American learned person. He was disrespected in such a way that it woke me up. I didn't, at the time, even realize how deep it was because it was a wake-up call for me. I realized something, but when that happened, the level of disrespect for that brother, to me, it was like a warning sign for me. I was furious. I said, whoa, this is out of hand. And from that point on, my whole spirit changed. My whole spirit. I was like, nah. And honestly, I don't think from that moment on that I've ever been the same. It didn't happen to me. It happened to someone else. But the level of disrespect, which I don't believe was conscious. I don't believe they meant to do that. That's my good opinion. I could be totally wrong, but I honestly, I don't believe that was the intent. It was the norm, and it just blew up. And it blew up in an ugly way. I said, this is a problem. This is a serious problem. And it changed me. 100, like just a complete turnaround. I was like, oh no, you cannot remain in this situation without changing it. That's what happened to me. Honestly, and it changed me. And now it not only changed me, it highlighted the problem for me. Then I started looking at everything. And when you start, looking at everything, stuff just start popping out. And then when I look around, I see that this is a norm. I see it's a norm. I see it's a norm. It's problematic. And if you study, we don't know what's been taken from us. We don't. We really don't even realize it. That's the hard part. We don't realize what has been taken from us. We don't realize it. And so we're back in Islam as Muslims, like Nat Turner and Harriet Tubman. This is our Islamic version of the Underground Railroad. This is our Islamic version of the Underground Railroad. And somebody has to wake us up, because we're sleeping in a coma. And it's not fair to future generations that we remain like this. I didn't mean to go this far, this long, but I don't want us, because people are actively trying to tell us, forget yourself. You're not that important. They don't say those words, but that's the meaning. That's the meaning. Forget yourself. You're not that important. And the Black Imams Roundtable, that so-called Imam Amin Muhammad, Brother Amin, is fueling the flames of racism. Really? Oh, really? But it's not racist for you to come in a Black neighborhood where there's disparity of economic distribution of wealth, and take that poor people's money by building businesses, taking the money out of the community, not reinvesting in the community, taking the money to the suburbs or overseas, and leave those people in the same condition, if not worse. That's not flaming the fires of racism. That's fine. Go in their communities, take their wealth, remove it, don't reinvest in no kind of way. Build institutions, build schools, send money overseas, never give them anything back, but that's not racism. That's not racism. But me mentioning it, trying to inspire our people is racist. Really. Really. Oh, sleeper, wake up. Even your own group, now I'm being more direct, they don't even give you access to what they produce. Repeat. Even your own slave master doesn't give you access to what they produce. Rather, they give you a lesser product. And you smile and say, listen, what boss gave us. You smile. Look what boss gave us. I heard one Negro, after almost 25 years, a basic text in Islamic knowledge, a basic text that is given freely to the others, freely, translated into English after the blacks had already translated it, but it wasn't official till it came from them, gave it to this, and this Negro puts on the internet, look what boss gave us, this new book we've been waiting for 25 years. You can't make this stuff up. Look what boss did for us. I'm sorry. You can't make this stuff up. Well, boss done made commentary after commentary, after summary, after notebook, after questions, after this, and then finally, like The Rock or something, finally, boss give you something in English, and you jumping up and down. You can't make this stuff up. You tell me we ain't jacked up, and you don't tell me people need to wake us up. The Saudis did it to blacks. The others did it to blacks. Sunnis. Come on, man. The same stuff. You know what they have access to? And they give you these shiny pamphlets you get from Dar es-Salaam. You know what they have access to for them and what they give you? Come on, man. Stop. But we don't have access. So to us, any little trickling down of anything is a great favor when it's really injustice and abuse. It's really injustice and abuse. And for me, this is I discovered, for me, this is my calling. Wake my people up to the best of my ability. Assist them to change this circumstance. To me, that's my calling. That's what I discovered. You know how you be looking in life for your purpose? That's my purpose. It entails teaching, yes, it entails. But more important, if I wake up 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 or 50 or 100 or 1,000, I did my part. I did my part. I did my part. And trust me, a lot of people know it. We know it. I don't know how many times I've been in circles with us, and we look at us bad. With black folks, and we be like, oh, this ain't for them. What you mean this ain't for them? Who's it for then? What the hell you mean it's not for them? Oh, they ain't interested. Well, get them interested. Get them interested. Get them interested. Make it accessible in a way that they will become interested. Because we need to be interested in our deen. And all of it, not a part of it. Not the little section they carved out. This is the portion for blacks. No, the whole deen, all of it. Complete, unrestricted access. That's what we need. And we have to make this a priority for us. It's a hard job. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's not. But some of us have to realize it's necessary and extremely important. We have to. I myself cannot sit and watch what's happening to us and remain silent. I can't do it. Can't do it. No way. My soul won't let it happen. When you're unaware, it's easy. But when you become aware, when you become conscious, as we say, when you are woke, you can't let it fly. No. No, 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 no. I don't think it's a matter of being better than anyone. I think it's a matter of realizing that Islam is the truth and everything other than it is false. And that is not the possession of any group of people. Truth belongs to everybody. That doesn't belong to the blacks. It doesn't belong to the whites. It doesn't belong to the Arabs. It doesn't belong to the Asians. It belongs to humanity. But unfortunately, everybody don't see it that way. Sometimes it's our possession and we share what we want to subjugate others with it. And that's a problem. That's a problem. That's a problem. And, you know, I watch children. I watch my own children. And I watch when they see us in charge, you can look in their faces and see the aspiration for a better future. Last night on the round table, we were talking about, and I think about this, we were talking about How many of you embraced Islam through the community of Imam Wafdi Muhammad from the 70s to the early 80s? From the 70s, 75 when he became the leader, to the early 80s. Let's say from 75 to 85. Okay, that's 1, 2. Let's be honest. Let's get it 3. I'm gonna ask y'all some questions. Right? So we're talking about from 75 to like 85. So there's the early 80s, late 70s, right? Mid to late 70s. So that was a movement into Orthodox Islam, Sunni Islam, Quran and Sunnah. I want to ask you, compare community life then to what you see now. Is there a distinct difference, yes or no? Muslim, African American, Muslim community life, dignity, and honor. Is there a difference from it was then to now? That's a question to all of y'all who said, I was in that movement at that time. Is there a distinct difference? Has it gotten better or worse? So you say, yes, there's a difference. Has it got better or worse? That's a question. I want all of you answered. Has it got better or worse? So you say worse. Next question, why? Your opinion, your observation. You said it's different. You said it got worse. Why? Why? That's each of your individual reasoning because you observe something and you see it. Now you got to ask why. Because if it's worse, it's a problem. So why? I'm waiting for more to come. I'm following you. Because we're going to think our way out of this mess just like we got our way in it. We're going to get out of it. But we got to have real dialogue. Okay. Some of y'all say, yes, I want your answers. If we're going to change, we got to have the dialogue. We got to really see what's going on. If we're going to make a real change, that has to be done with understanding of the situation. So since we see all of these issues, So when we look at this, and this does not mean in every place, in every community, because some communities are still surviving and still thriving. Whatever those things that you say helped it to get worse, you have to revive them to make it better. Whatever the things you saw the problem that made it like that, you have to revive them back to what made you witness what you witnessed. You have to revive that. One of the things that you have to revive is value and dignity of yourself. That's one of the biggest things that was taken away from us. Value and dignity for ourselves as a people. That has to be restored. That has to be restored. And one of the ways you're going to restore that is by constantly, diligently, persistently speaking about it. The more you hear something, it will resonate with you. The more you talk about it, the more you expect. So people say, we're just talking. Yeah, that's the first stage. Because until it resonates in your mind, until you realize that it's an obligation for me to change this situation, you can't do nothing else but talk. Because you're not going to act on something you fully don't understand. That's the nature of people. So you have to constantly put it in the mind. Anyone studies marketing and advertising here? We watch CNN, we watch the news, CNBC or whatever, them, Fox, whatever, rap music, entertainment. It's constant repetition of ideas and thoughts until you believe it. That's the nature of things. You constantly go over it. You constantly hear it. It's repackaged in another form all the time till it sticks. Then you're able to act. Without it, you're not going to move. So I'm going to stop there. And listen, I need some of you to take this journey with me. I need some of you to seriously take this journey with me. I don't expect a bunch of people to take this journey. It's too difficult. Some got to sacrifice themselves for the whole. Not everyone's going to, this is a rough path, right? So I don't expect everyone to do it. But I do expect some of us to do it for the sake of the others. Some of us got to be willing to sacrifice ourselves for a bigger purpose, right? So when we ask of you, We're not asking for a small objective. No, it's huge. It's huge. And I asked that question about our early communities, which would give you almost 50 years or more of what can happen. And we all agreed that that level of dignity we had and community and has deteriorated. That's 50 years. What does the next 50 look like if we continue down the same road? That's 50 years. We agree that it's deteriorated. What does the next 50 look like if we stay on the same path? Think about it. That's 50 years. Let me tell you what it looks like. Atlantic City. I'm telling you, my city. When I came into Islam, what I thought, I'm not talking about Ahl Sunnah, I'm talking about the word Islam. I was 10 years old. I'm 52 now. So I've seen 42 years. 42 years of this. I've been around a long time. I remember when we used to say Islam in America and our picture of a Muslim was black. I remember those days. Wherever you looked in our communities, when you talked about a Muslim, it was a black person. That was the look. I remember that. Who remembers those days? I do. 40 years ago, in the inner cities, in America, if you said Muslim, and especially in the inner cities, you were talking about an African American for sure. That was the common thread. When we said brother Imam, we meant that figuratively and physically. Brother Imam, it's a black dude. I remember those days. I remember in the community when you wanted to see activity and good people, the good brother or the good sister, they were talking about an African American Muslim or what they understood to be Islam. That was the view. I remember when we were kids, we were walking around in our communities giving da'wah to what we understood at that time, interacting in the community, and you would see nothing else but African Americans. Nothing else. That's what you would see. In my city, the only masjid was an African American Wharfie Muhammad Community Masjid. Follow me. Now, I want you to think about this. I'm going to show you how destructive this is. Now, the only African American led masjid in Atlantic City is Masjid Muhammad. The only. There are now 3 and 1 on the way, 4 masjids, official masjids. I ain't talking about something somebody doing in their house being a rebel. I'm talking about real established masjids on paper, real masjid. There's only 4, right? All of them are by immigrants with no black leadership. Only Masjid Muhammad. And Masjid Muhammad is not predominantly African American anymore. It's predominantly immigrant. Do you hear what I said? Even Masjid Muhammad has black leadership, meaning the Imam and the board, African Americans, all of them, right? But the community itself, if you came to Jumu'ah, is predominantly immigrant. That's what it will look like 50 years from now, if not worse, if we stay on the same course. Did you hear what I just described? And that goes to, you go around the country, it may vary a little bit, but it's the same. And one of the ways is to say you don't know Islam. And to look at your learning of Islam as inferior, not denied access, just inferior. Not that we gave you everything and you just refused. No, we didn't give you everything. You don't even know that what you have is mistaken. But we're going to accuse you of misguidance. And that is so we can annihilate you. Pay attention. I'll tell you, many of our black masjids are on the brink of being taken over and you don't realize it. Many imams, once they die, it's over, a wrap, ball game, you're done. That's happening. Pay attention. You're being exterminated right in front of you. Right in front of you. Your children will grow up feeling that Islam is not for them. And eventually they will deteriorate in their practice or leave it altogether. Is that not happening? They will deteriorate in their practice from how you raise them, or they will leave it altogether. Do you not notice that? Open your eyes and look. Is that what you're seeing? Is that not what you're seeing? Pay attention. Some of us are parents and grandparents. Are we not seeing that? We're watching it right in front of us. So someone got to tell us, no. It's happening right in front of us. But because we're not examining the reality of what's going on, we're so proud to get a data boy, we're killing ourselves. We're killing ourselves. And trust me, Islam is our only salvation. Islam is our only salvation. What is left will wipe us out altogether. Altogether. The only thing that's going to save us is Islam. So it's a must that we preserve Islam for our own survival. It's a must that we preserve Islam for our own survival as a people. It's real stuff. So someone tells me, stop talking black stuff. Nah. You just told me you don't care about me or my people. I have a reverse. Why don't you help me and start talking about black stuff? I have a reverse to that. Why don't you help me and start talking about the importance of the black issue, the black community, its survival, its growth, its prosperity, its development in every facet of life. We count. And we need more people, especially us, to raise their voices in a similar vein. We need more imams to be courageous enough to say this reality that we all see. No one is blind from it. Trust me. We see it, all of us. We're affected by it, every single one of us, even the successful ones. To me, this would be an example for me. And I know Imam hate me doing this, but Imam, I gotta do you, bro, because I love you. But your words are so powerful. One of the most successful African-American communities that I know, that's predominantly African-American, I'm not saying they're the best. I didn't say that. I said among the most successful is the Atlanta Masjid of Islam in Atlanta, Georgia, who's led by Imam Suleiman. Yesterday, he put a post. To me, it was like, bam, I love this guy, man, right? He said, why I teach what I teach. This is his post, right? I'm reading it. This guy, man, is incredible. I love him. This is him. Why I teach what I teach. Someone said, I'm always teaching the same thing. Someone said that to him. Akhlaq and ihsan. Right? Akhlaq and ihsan. I have been and will continue teaching about akhlaq, character, and ihsan, the aspiring for spiritual excellence. Why? Because we are suffering. Look how he put the word suffering. I don't know if I can get this up. I don't know if the light, I don't know how this is working. It's not looking good to me. Too much light. Anyway, I can't get it. But he put, why? I know you can't see it, I'm sorry, but I'll read it. He put suffering in all caps. He said, why? Because we are suffering in all caps in this area. Character ills like dishonesty, unreliability, not to mention envy, jealousy, and cowardice are rampant. And with people like this, it's almost impossible to build community. Wow. I'm going to read that back. He said, why? Because we are suffering. He's talking about African Americans. That's obvious. We are suffering. Right? In this area, character ills like dishonesty, unreliability, not to mention envy, jealousy, and cowardice are rampant. And with people like this, it's almost impossible to build community. He said, so I teach to heal. Subhanallah. He said, now, and he put that in capital letters, prepare to receive a concentrated focus on family development. The rate of family discord in our community is shameful. The rate of family discord in our community is shameful. If your family is in shambles, all of that other stuff we promote is hollow. Ihsan, akhlaq, healthy family. This is the foundation starting Jumu'ah. This like hits it to the core. And this is among the most successful African American Islamic communities in the country. In terms of numbers, in terms of business, in terms of schooling, education, they are at the forefront of the African American community. That's a fact. And that's him talking. What about the rest of us? What about the rest of us? And we'll find a way to criticize them because we'll go there and they're not Sunni enough for us, or they're not on the Sunnah enough for us. So we'll criticize that. We'll go there, oh, this Wafdi Muhammad community, blah, 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 blah. You know how we do. We'll find a way to dismiss all those great things that they're doing, to talk about the bad that we deem bad, and tear the whole thing down. Envy and jealousy, right? Oh, they're not on the Sunnah. They're the most successful by far in the country that I've seen. I'm not saying they're not others, but I'm talking about if you really look at the whole picture, not part of it, the whole thing, they are successful in family life, in education, in business, and they are struggling. What about the rest of us? And they are generations of community building. That's generations. And they're struggling. What about the rest of us? You don't think this is important? If that's among the most successful examples of what we can do, and I don't take that from him, I give it to him, hands down. But I know him as a fellow Imam, as a colleague, as a friend. I know how hard it is. I know how hard it is. We have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do. But you know what they'll have us do? Ignore all that success. Hey, these guys, man, they got people in there that ain't even covered properly. They'll be concentrating on that. You heard the guys, Imam's Arabic ain't good enough. We'll concentrate on that. And every good thing that we need in our community that's built, we'll ignore it. That's us. That's that envy. That's that jealousy. And we will be afraid to stand up and mention our merits. That's that cowardice that he's talking about. It's real stuff. It's real stuff. And we need bravery to do what we're doing. We have to. All right, I could go on all day about this stuff because my heart bleeds it, especially as you get older. I watched the people I came up with in Islam. SubhanAllah. I watched them die. You know how many people I bury that I remember from way back in the day? And I watched this beard get grayer and grayer and grayer. I watched this hair fall out and fall out and fall out. We got work to do. We have a lot of work to do. So that was my long answer to why I talk about these issues. And I'm not going to stop until there is a complete change. I will not stop until there's a complete change. But while we're educating, because that is important, we're educating, we do it. Even if others, they undermine what we do because we're not servants to no one else, we do it. People are learning Ahl Sunnah. People are learning the correct Aqidah. People are learning the rules of the religion. But with the limited time we have with our people, we also got to build their dignity and honor up. Because that's essential to the learning process. You have to be dignified. To believe you can learn. To believe you can understand. To be brave enough to understand, you have to have some dignity. You can't have low self-esteem and do what we're talking about. You have to be a lion. And trust me, there's going to come the day when I'm attacked for doing what I'm doing. I'm already attacked privately, but it's going to come public one day. It's going to come out. And I'm going to rip heads off. I don't want you to panic when it happens. Because I go light now. But when they step out, I'm going to rip them to shreds. They are doing it already. It's already the plots. They hate what we're doing. But as soon as they raise their ugly heads, I'm going to cut it off. It's going to be brutal the way I do them. Because anyone who comes against this work is an enemy to our people and future generations. An enemy, an open enemy. And I'm going to slay them. Figuratively speaking. Figuratively speaking. Right? With the sword of truth, I'm taking their heads off. So be prepared. Learn well so that you will understand how to defend truth fully. Because they want us as servants and slaves. And we can't settle for that at all. Some of us don't realize what's happening to us, but some of us are woke. We're woke. We realize what's going on. And listen, the enemy of my people is my enemy as well. The enemy of my people is my enemy as well. I am of my people. Say la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. You'll be all right. Repeat much as you can. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. You'll be okay. Don't worry, Tahir. You'll be fine. All right. Barakallahu bikum. Don't be afraid. We have a lot of struggling to do. Don't be a coward. They're not as tough as they appear. They're not as knowledgeable as they appear, and they are mostly brutal liars. You just didn't catch it yet. Don't be intimidated. They're not that tight. Trust me. They got holes all in their stuff. And when we start poking, they're going to be shocked. Don't be intimidated. Don't let them intimidate you. They're nothing to be afraid of. They're not even cut like that at all. Not even close. We've been the spook at the door long enough to realize their weaknesses. And they have a lot of them. A whole lot. So don't be intimidated. Just continue the journey. We are right. Barakallahu bikum. Inshallah, today is Wednesday. So at 6 o'clock, we have the reading of the books of Imam al-Haddad. Inshallah. And that will be the reading of the books of Imam al-Haddad. There will be no scattered thoughts. There will be the reading of the books of Imam al-Haddad. But I had to get this off my chest because it's important. It's important. Any brief questions? I don't want to just cut you off. If there's questions about what I said, please feel free to quickly ask. I don't want to just cut you off after listening to me for an hour and a half. If there's any questions. If not, I'll see you tonight at 6 with the books of Imam al-Haddad. Let me give you the link. I'm sorry, while we do that. Here is the link for the books of Imam al-Haddad. For those who are interested, that's where you will find the books that we're studying. طيب السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.